with everything that we're hearing right now about black men not showing up, right? Black men not being present for democracy. Can you tell me if that's a myth? And what's your thoughts on those, those sensationalist, sayings?
It's not a myth, but it is a survival strategy. One of the things that we had to do since slavery and was protect ourselves from the fears of others. That I still think that's one of the problems the nation has now, and one of the reasons why people are anxious. That I think by 2040, the majority of the population, male population in the United States, will be people of color. That'll be Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, Caribbeans, Black Americans, and I think those that rallied behind Trump were really afraid of that. And they didn't have an answer. The answer would be, we're going to send more people to college. We're going to create businesses for people who have less experience. And we're going to compete like we compete on a football team.
Yes, sir.
I mean, black folk didn't take white folk.
Yes, sir.
But it made white folk play better. And so it meant that they weren't the only quarterback, or the only runner. But everybody's better because of Jim Brown.
Yes, sir.
See? And I don't know, you too young to remember, well, it's like Satchel Paige in baseball. He was in his 60s, still pitching in the major league. And he said, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Yes, sir.
And so we have developed a sense of survival that makes us strong. And people are afraid of that. That's not just a big guy like you. My grandchildren get that, in elementary school. Because some people feel that their skin color or their heritage gives them a certain entitlement. And one thing about democracy is the better the more level the playing field, the stronger the democracy.
Yes, sir.
And so I think it's something we're going to have to live with. It's not wrong, and we'll think we'll all be stronger for it.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And my other question was, in this moment right now that we sit in, this historic moment, how can young people, how can the youth as well, start serving, right? How can we serve to push this country forward, right? Because I know when you started, you didn't do it for the publicity. I'm sorry, you didn't do it, to be, everywhere.
I was blessed.
You were blessed, yes, sir.
I was blessed to live in a neighborhood that had an Irish grocery store on one corner, an Italian bar on the next. The Nazi Party was on the third corner of my house, and a Chevrolet dealership around the fourth corner. And me and my brother were the only black kids on the block. We had other black people live in the neighborhood in New Orleans. And my daddy told me, don't ever lose your temper in a fight. Don't get mad, get smart. If you lose your temper, the blood rushes from your head to your fist to your feet, and you stop thinking. He said, your mind is the most powerful weapon you have. And if you stay cool and let your mind function. And he reminded me of that all through life. He took me to see the 1936 Olympic Games in movies, because he wanted me to see how Jesse Owens handled Hitler walking out. He said, "What did Jesse do?" I said, "He didn't do anything." I said, "Yeah." And my father said, "Yeah, he kept his cool. He didn't let Hitler get him upset. He had one gold medal, and he had 3 more to run." and he stayed cool, and he won all 4 of them. So, and he'd say over and over again, "Don't get mad, get smart." When Sonny Liston and Muhammad Ali fought, I thought Sonny Liston was the biggest, baddest guy I could see. He said, "No, Muhammad Ali is going to knock him out, probably in less than 3 rounds." I said, "How, Daddy? That man's a giant." He said, "Yeah, but he lost his temper." And he said, "Muhammad Ali is going to cut him to pieces." and that was his philosophy. Don't get mad, get smart. And if you keep your head about you when all men are losing theirs and blaming it on you, you know, if you trust yourself and all men doubt you, yet make allowances for that doubting too. I mean, it's a lot of things that we've done through the years that becomes a survival skill, and that's why we've made it. But that's why we've made such a contribution to this country.
So what would you tell your 17-year-old self now, with everything that you've been through, all the days that you've seen, the wisdom, movement, everything? What would you tell your 17-year-old self right now?
Well, I'm really happy with myself. I mean, I goofed off and I fucked up. But the Lord never let me down. And I mean, I was in my 3rd year at Howard when I was 17. And I was behind, and I really wasn't a good student, but I learned a lot, you know, and Howard was a great place to, because we had students from every part of the world, and I had friends from every part of the world, and I'm pleased with the way I grew up. But
it worked out.
My parents thought I was a failure. My daddy wanted me to be a doctor or a dentist. But after I had to take a dead cat and put it on a mortar board and slide it up under my bed to study the nerves and muscles of a dead cat, I said, this ain't for me.
You know, there are so many philosophical and existential things that we could talk about what's at stake with this election. But I think just for everyday citizens, and I'm a citizen myself, I walk around my kitchen and I'm faced with the same problems that all my neighbors and some of my supporters are faced with. Inflation, we're suffering runaway inflation. Jobs are, you know, the economy is not producing enough jobs in our community that pay a living wage, a wage that's going to let us be upwardly mobile. Housing, you know, that's a big one for me, this housing crisis. I wrote during COVID, I wrote an article, The American Nightmare, a forecast for Black American housing. And almost all those things have come to bear in terms of gentrification, the lack of access, the amount of houses that we need to build, Medicare, Medicaid, expansion of healthcare. We don't have adequate access to healthcare, food, just practical thing, you know. People need eyeglasses and can't buy them. Seniors need hearing aids and can't get them. Our youth need proper nutrition. You know, there's a lack of food resources in the community. So beyond the big existential philosophical problems like crime, you know, this gun violence is definitely out of control. women have no more say so in their reproductive rights, and some of the big ticket, big tent items for the Democratic Party. It's just almost like, I think for me, it's the economic aspects, the financial dignity, financial literacy, and financial security.
Got you. Okay. Good stuff. And that makes me think about, like, with you being a House District elect, right? Like with you moving into this, into 2025, um, already I'm pretty sure having several different items that you want to,
Yes, fight
um,
for. Yeah.
yeah, fight for in your district. Um, what's up next for District 65?
Main
What
thing we want to do, yeah, great question. And then you left that question out, which is a deep question. I'm gonna need you to help me build the conversation about, how do we collaborate as Black men and Black women. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts, or just help me get out on that conversation. But for District 65, my vision is that we want to upskill the district, right? There's so much, we're building data centers here. Like to see my students and my professionals get more involved with computer science, IT. Professionals have the training and education to participate in some of these high-paying six-figure jobs. Atlanta Regional Commission, they just did a study of housing in the district, and we're going to need something north of 15 or 20,000 new housing units built between now and 25. I want skilled tradesmen with the youth, and the young professionals, so that they're able to start businesses as plumbers, home builders, landlords, electricians, all those construction trades. And for our seniors, I want them to be able to age in place and have financial dignity as they retire and move into a different phase of their economic life.
Amazing. Amazing. So what I'm hearing, man, District 65 needs to be very, very excited with you being at the core of that, man, and you being at the head of that. So
Yeah, in a
um,
word, we just want to upskill everyone, upskill our infrastructure, and then I have a lot of progressive legislation that I'll be proposing that goes hand in hand in this.
for sure. And how can people, especially youth, right, stay updated with what you're doing right in the state house?
Yeah, absolutely. On social media, I'm Robert for Georgia. And then my website is robertforgeorgia.com. So I have a newsletter. Want everyone to join me on social and also join that newsletter.
Dope, dope. Y'all heard it first from Robert Dawson. Robert, got another question for you, man.
Sure.
Told you I had several for you. So this one, man, I want you to go back in in your memory, right? I want you
Mm,
to really, really think about this, right? Because you're gonna be talking to so many high schoolers, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and just, young people, young men, right? And I don't even just want to limit it to men, but just in general, young people, right? As you said, you want to build a future for them in a lot of ways, right? You want to make sure that they have access to so many different opportunity, right? And that's gonna make
mm,
our your district better. That's gonna make our country better, right? That's gonna make the future a lot more prosperous. So I want to ask you, right, with all of your experience and everything that you've been through, right, up to this point, with you being a leader, with you just having a lot of right, like experience in life. I want to ask you, what would you tell your 17-year-old self now, and why would you tell yourself this at this point in time? At this very very critical moment in history. What would you tell your 17-year-old self in regards to just wisdom, right? Like what
mm.
wisdom would you tell him now?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I think, first and foremost, discipline and investment, engagement, being actively civically, you can't go wrong in being active in business and corporate wise, building that resume. You constantly have to be finding new skill sets, adding to your education. You have to build that muscle of saving. Don't be a consumer, be a producer. And then I think, I would say challenge yourself to embrace new cultural aesthetics. I think that's one problem, that our youth are getting caught in a vicious cycle. You see what's going on in the news with all of the entertainers who are their heroes. The Lil Durk, Young Thug, even Rich Homie Quan, even Sean Combs. All these scandals in the entertainment, the cultural um, entertainment that has the imagination of our youth. There's so much violence and destruction and controversy. So I think it's time for a new aesthetic. And if I had to start at a young age, I want to be an innovator to come up with a more positive cultural, social, entertainment aesthetic for the Black community, and also carry on more of the traditions that are meaningful. And we have so much to look back at: Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, W.E.B. Du Bois, who you mentioned, the Black Panther Party. So much. The culture is so rich that I hate to see our youth, the imagination of our youth, captured by the lowest common denominator. So just a challenge to revolutionize your mind state at a young age, and a respect for life, and a more enriching culture.
Mm. That's good, man. That is so good. And I definitely feel like, there's a lot that, you know, Black men can do to collab, right? To collaborate, to create, to, envision different, ways to really meet the youth where they're at, right? And I know that's something I'm very, very excited for, right? As you continue your journey, right? And also watching District 65 flourish, and also be under your leadership, right? I'm very excited for that, because I know young Black boys have a role model, right? Have someone
Yeah.
that's been there, that's been through the fire of life, and can tell them about life, can tell them
Yeah.
about the different things that you're gonna see in this life. Get started in the civic political space, and why do you do the work?
Well, first, I want to bring you greetings on behalf of the Black City Councilman of Georgia, our president, Joshua Butler, the City Councilman of East Point, and myself. I serve as the executive director. And this was actually formed in birth of our Congresswoman, Nikema Williams. A little background on that organization before I take that deep dive in your question. The Black City Councilman of Georgia represents over 150 cities in Georgia. Georgia has about 532 cities based on the Georgia Municipal Association. And we have over about 177 active Black city councilmen and women and small town mayors that participate in this particular organization. Now, in reference to myself, I started very early. I started in this process early when we moved back to Atlanta, Georgia. My mother was asked to volunteer for then Andy Young, who was running for Congress. So that was my very first time. I was like 9 or 10 years old that I saw a Black man with an afro on a poster. I was like, wow, how cool is this? I need to find out what he's doing. And it said, think young. And I remember the picture. I remember like stuffing envelopes, and that's all blurry, but that's all I remember is my first indication into politics. As I moved on, I went to a conference when Jesse Jackson ran. He ignited me. I think he ignited our whole urban base, a population of Black America. He ignited me. And I went to the convention in Chicago. And he told the audience to go back home and get involved. He said, go back home and get involved. No matter what it is, just do something. Even back then, Jesse Jackson was phenomenal. I pulled that speech up, as a matter of fact, recently, just to motivate me. And what I did is I came back home. I lived in DeKalb County, Georgia, and I saw an ad in the paper said DeKalb County Young Democrats. And I went to that meeting. I showed up at that meeting, and that meeting was very vanilla. And I showed up at that meeting and I said, I'm here to volunteer. I'm here to make a difference. And whatever it was, I did it. I did voter registration drive. I did phone banking, you name it. And I started that movement so hard and was so engaged in it. And basically, anybody that called, I made myself available because I wanted to learn. I was like a sponge. 2 years later, I became the vice president. A year later, I ended up running the organization. So now I am president of the DeKalb County Young Democrats. I had two loves. I also had a love in TV production. So I went to a small cable TV and took a class to understand how to produce a TV show. And we created a show called Let's Talk Politics. So I made all the members in the DeKalb Young Democrats take a course so they can be certified to have a camera crew and run it. And we ended up having a political talk show. And believe it or not, and I'm dating myself, young man, but there was a gentleman that came in town, and his name was Governor Bill Clinton. When Governor Bill Clinton came, they called what? The DeKalb Young Democrats. Why? Because we are the ones who volunteer. And it was a phenomenal time. I was in the room with Zell Miller, then Democrat Zell Miller, and Governor Bill Clinton, and believe it or not, Sam Nunn. But it was such a joy to me as I look back of those conversations that I was ear listening to, because we had set up our TV show. My first interview was with Sam Nunn, Governor Bill Clinton, and Zell Miller. That's how the young Democrats came on the scene. So I came on the scene hot, brother. I came on hot. I was president of the Young Democrats, and we was producing a political show on cable that they couldn't even get their head around, called Let's Talk Politics. So that was my introduction into politics.
Wow. Wow. Man, I feel like your experience just like gleams out your pores, man. It's like it's Black excellence, and like the fact that you have such a long, just history really in politics, right? And really on every single level. And that really kind of like segues us into our the second question. Like what's at stake in this election? Out of all the years, like as you mentioned, being like talking with Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, right? Being at the forefront of his election, I believe, like here in Georgia, right? Or just in general, right, with the young Dems, like just being very, very involved, right, with the Democratic Party. What can you say with your experience and also just like your wisdom? What's at stake in this election? What are we fighting against? And how are some ways that people can get involved? Like if you're a young Black male, what's your place in this? I know that's two different questions, but the second question, yeah, a part of that first question is how can young Black males as well insert themselves into this moment?
The world is upside down right now. Ever since COVID, we have been upside down, and we're trying to figure out our place in America and our place in the world as a macro level. As you get to a micro level, to say Black America, to Black men, or just to the urban market or demographics, it's very challenging right now. It's very, very challenging. Yesterday, I had the honor of speaking to a group of men in a local place called Greenbrier Mall in Atlanta. It's a staple over here in our area. And the men in there, they are 80 and 90 years old. It was about 40 or 50 of them. This is my second time coming back, but they care and they get it and they want to get engaged. Now, when I started this journey of getting on this campaign, it was the Biden-Harris campaign. And at that initiative, I wanted to do some work on Black men because I saw how the opposition was actually basically trying to just say, pay them some attention by sending them some sneakers in other areas. But I do feel that the Democratic Party was not engaged with our community as they should be. That's just real talk. That's me speaking. And so there was a void there, and there still is a void there, because I have been on the true ground. I'm catching the bus. I'm bringing the Harris Walsh information on the bus, talking to people. I'm on the MARTA train. I'm in the nightclubs. I'm at the Waffle House. We're having real engagement. And it breaks down based on not social economic, but the ages. So once you get down to 40 and under, to be honest, there's a little block right there. There's a little pushback. So we have a lot of work to do. We have to demystify, we have to deprogram, and then educate them again, because they have been getting so much this misinformation on what I'm talking on now on this little cell phone. They're getting all this information and they don't know what's right or what's wrong. And it's hard to unpack in a 2 or 3 minute conversation sometimes. And it's challenging, but I still try to give it my all. And back in the day, I respect my elders. Sometimes the young folks actually don't respect the elders as they should. And I don't know whose fault that is. So I'm still trying to say I'm present and I'm here. We have a lot of work, but what I do is I try to listen to them. I say, tell me what we can do different. Tell me what you like to see. So you have to be engaged. I've had a philosophy. You always have to build a big enough tent to have a shared vision or value so we can start a conversation. So I built a big enough tent in the conversation with my young Black brothers who somewhat just think that this whole thing is a game. And it's not a game. You are right. This is the most, and I really mean it, this is the most important election in my lifetime. And I mean it, and I think all of us should mean it, because we understand what the opposition is trying to do. They're trying to take us back to tyranny. I mean, they're running a kleptocracy. They're just running to try to disrupt America and be basically political criminals. We need to educate our Black men and America that it's time to unite. Like the vice president says, it's time to unite all of us and sit us at the table so we can have a community conversation and we can build Atlanta and build America. The Black man has built America, and the Black man now will save America by elevating our queen and putting her in position so we can rule and make this thing better for America.
Mm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, you got me wanting to knock doors right now, man. Go outside, knock some doors, talk to
But,
voters.
but let me finish this too. Also, there's something called the power of perception. For some reason, when you see one or two of us, dreadlocks, afro, you name it, it doesn't matter. You can even walk around with a Starbucks cup, and it was a deck report. And there's always something of how they have embedded the images of a Black man of something of not so positive. And that's, we've been fighting it all our life. You know this, brother. We've been fighting it all our life, that we breathe the same air. We have some of the same issues and concerns. We just want to have a quality of life for our family. And that's the core base of trying to build. And the perception is, we're, and I hate to even spill some of the negative words, so I'm not going to do it, but what some of the negative perceptions is out there from years of the media, years of some of the government, how they used to treat us and how they would glorify some of the negative situations that are out there, opposed to lifting up some of the positive images out there. So I'm gonna leave that right there. But the perception that we have right now, we still have to change it. And that's why we have to build community. And that's one of our biggest challenges with our young people, that we have to understand that we love you, brothers. We're here together and we have to make this thing work. And every day, as you know, I'm out here trying to figure this thing out. I do not have the answers, but I'm moving closer to the solution because I show up every day.
Mm, mm. Yes, sir. And that brings me to the next question, man. So why are Black men and more Black men needed in the political space and the civic space, right? And how are some ways, like if they're young or they're just any age Black man just looking to get involved, how can they get involved?
Well, I was taught early on about civic engagement. Civic engagement is so important. I did civic engagement as well as community, my faith. I started with my faith and then building community. You can get started, basically look in the mirror. You look in the mirror and say, okay, then you have the power to make a difference. Start with yourself. Look in the mirror and then look outside in your community and find something that moves you. Find something that touches your heart. Find a issue. It could be housing. It could be the economy. It could be the homeless. It could be the environment, but find a common denominator that you want to make a difference. And there are tons of community organizations out here that will help you, or you can help them, or we can help each other, because that's what we need. We need each other. So try to find something that will touch your heart and move to your heart, and then take that step. So for me, my community made a big difference. I wanted to be involved. And basically, I came outside and said, well, guess what? It's nasty out here. Let's do a cleanup. And we organized the cleanup. So that's how we started, just by picking up trash. Picking up trash, and that's how you clean your environment and make it right. And then next, we planted a garden. And then the next, we started to understand how we can advocate for issues in our community. So that's how we made a difference. But for the young people right now, how do we get them off of these tablets and these computers to come back outside, smell this fresh air, and get engaged in community? It's so important.
Oh, man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And with that point, so like, what would you tell your 17-year-old self right now? What would you tell yourself about the space that you hold, right? Not only in politics, right? Because we know, this politics intersects throughout, all parts of our lives, right? So with your growth, with your experience, with where you are in this present moment, what would you tell your 17-year-old self, and why?
I would tell my 17-year-old self to be engaged more, um, to get involved early, to run for office early, to buy more land. That's what I'll tell my 17-year-old self. And to read a lot. We started a book club that we try to read a book once a month. I just read the book by Mayor Berry, the mayor of Washington, D.C. That was a phenomenal book.
Mm.
So there's so much education out there. I read the Al Sharpton books of Don't Drop Your Mic. So reading truly is fundamental. Trust me, reading is fundamental. So don't stop looking at these little blogs and little 5-second clips and think that that's information and news. No, do, as the vice president said, do your research. Do your research. Also, while you're reading, read Project 2025. That's what you do.
Read
But
Project 2025.
yes, but in
Yes.
reference to my 17-year-old self, I would say build a better diversity network, because that's how you change those stereotypes. Early on, I joined the Jewish Association. I started a Hispanic organization of 17 years ago, Hispanic and African American organization called the National Black Latino Council. Diversity is key. We have a lot in common. We have more in common than most. We should not be so divisive now, as the other side, who's also run for office, they are so divided. Right now, our vice president is truly hitting everything on all cylinders, because she wants to unite America. It's time to move forward. So I tell my 17-year-old self to get engaged early, to run for office early, and do not be scared to take that step to get involved, and to ask questions. Ask questions. It's okay. A closed mouth and mind does not get fed.
Well, y'all heard it here first from business leader, community strategist, community activist, community leader, a brother, right? A son, an uncle, the one, the only Lance Robinson. I appreciate you so much, man.